Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Quick few thoughts. Having had some good discussions here with some brothers in Sweden, I'd just like to share some thoughts with you, inshallah. First is that we are living amongst a group of, I think our generation and the generation that we're living amongst are people who don't like to read. They don't like to read a book. Okay, I don't know when the last time you read a book or you read a book from cover to cover, but most people these days are taking small snippets from information that are given on the screens, but it's not really an entire, it's not an entire sort of researched work. See, a book or a work that is researched takes years to produce. And the reason why it takes years to produce is because you have to spend so many years sifting through the information, and you have to then go through so many works on the same subject. You have to get rid of all the, things that are not so true, and you've got to then include the things that are not only true, but they also make coherent sense, and they've been trialed and tested and so on and so forth. Now, in any given subject, this takes years to do, years to look at all the masters in the field and what they've written, and then, to come up with a new piece. Okay. Now, there's a point that I'm going to get to, inshallah, but I want to first highlight that this generation is already lacking very highly in this, because what's happening is people have got these WhatsApp groups, they've got these this social media and these bite-sized information that comes, and people kind of take these bite-sized small piece of information and think that they have understood so much about the subject, and that is some serious flaw. Okay, number one, everyone has a field, okay, that they might be experienced in, and it's best to look at your experience field and to speak from there. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people are growing up without any experience in any sort of field, and they're kind of becoming people who know bits and pieces, like jack of all trades, masters of none. So on the subject of that, one of the discussions that I've had here in Sweden is about how the mind sort of think, and how people get shifted into different modes of thinking without even going deep into the reasons. So one of them that we discussed was what's happening with the relationship between men and women as a result of what has happened in the last sort of 100 years. And recently there's been a whole, massive kind of a sand dune that has come across of feminism. Okay, now I'm not going to say all feminism is bad. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to throw everything out there. But if you really think about it, where did feminism come from? Feminism actually is given as a birth. Okay, the birth of feminism is because of the male chauvinist kind of era, where men have just taken control of things, and they've not allowed women to be in charge of hardly anything. Okay, not even given the dignity of being a human being in some societies, and not even having the right to vote and the right to be part of the community in many ways. Okay, but what has happened again is that a lot of people who've come across the ideas haven't really gone really deep into thinking about everything in and around all of that. So if you look at the whole movement of feminism, I think definitely there was a case for women to get their rights. There definitely is a case that women they shouldn't be mistreated. And definitely there's a case that there should be equal sort of treatment, especially in the workplace and so on. And definitely, out of the two genders, you shouldn't have one gender that kind of, has an oyster card to do what they want. Okay, So if the case was that the male has had the Oyster card to do what he wanted to for generations, then now the question that has to be asked is, what is actually happening? Is it the case that now through the movement of feminism, you're giving the female, you're giving certain females the Oyster card to do what they want? And the arguments that are being put, most people don't actually look deep into it of what is to come next. This is the big point, and what has happened in the past, and what it does to communities when you have an imbalance, because the imbalance is the thing that then you would shift and go into a new era of a new few generations, and all of them are going to then find another type of onslaught that comes. So let's take another example. Children, and in terms of how they, children and how they sort of are brought up in the world. In terms of their discipline, you find that there was a time when discipline was with strictness of having the whip or the cane or having the stick, and then all of that got completely abolished. Especially in the Western world, it's been cleared out for good reasons. But the question is the discipline itself. In terms of when we talk about discipline, have we caused an imbalance in the discipline? Because what you saw, let's say 50, 60 years ago, or even 30 years ago, what you saw children who were disciplined in a certain way. They may not have had all their question answered. They may not have had all the things they wanted, but they grew up to be individuals who were okay in society. They actually contributed well in the societies. They grew up to be men and women who are balanced in some way. Yes, I'm against the kind of punishments and the disciplinary ways that we had in the past. Fine, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the discipline itself, because discipline doesn't have to be with sticks, and it doesn't have to be with hitting or punishing someone. What imbalance has been created, because now we're seeing youngsters and we're seeing children who don't give a damn, okay, who don't care. They think they own the world. I mean, I was talking la ilaha illallah. I was talking of yesterday again about certain youngsters who are out there, and they might they're out there, and there's been some stabbings. Now we know stabbings are happening across in London, now in Sweden, Stockholm. Okay, there's some stabbings here as well amongst the youth. Okay, now these are gang related. These are sort of knife crimes and so on that are going on. Okay, so the question then is, well, why are they doing it, and how do you stop them from having these these gang sort of warfares that they've got? And what was really shocking was the fact that the shocking thing was they got an imam to speak to one of these youngsters. He's only about 20 years old, 21 years old, and he's in these crime related sort of gangs and going out and stabbing and so on, all part of the culture. Okay, and the imam spoke to him and said to him that, look, you've got akhirah, you've got the afterworld. You might as well save your life now and get out of these gangs, and you might as well go out there and you might as well just be clean, right, and get a good life. And you know what the youngster said, and this is what kills you, and this comes from the lack of education, the lack of reading. This comes from I think a hyper sort of culture of just smartphones and bite-sized information, and you can't see beyond that. I mean, the answer was shocking. The answer this youngster gave, he said, I can't see myself or any of us living beyond 25. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that this youngster getting into this culture of this gang culture, and people being stabbed, and stabbings happening? They've made their mind up that I'm going to probably die like the rest of these other guys that are dying. So there's no life, there's no hope. And what he can't see is that he has a choice to get out of this and to look at life overall. What he can't see, and he probably hasn't had the opportunity, he needs that opportunity to get out of that, those groups. And he needs to seriously start thinking about life, what life is. Is life just, a few knives and a bit of fun, whatever it is, and in the end you just die at 25 being a brave person, but then you're finished. You're in the akhirah. Now, that's just to do with our youth, and you think about what's behind that. Behind that is this whole imbalance in discipline. And there's a lot of other factors, of course, where parents, if they haven't taken the responsibility seriously, or if they spoil their children and so on, all of it comes from imbalance. Either you're too strict or you're too lenient. Now, let me get back to the whole point of feminism, because we were discussing this yesterday. And what's happened now is that on the back of feminism, so again, I'm not talking about the good causes that feminism is trying to get. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the whole, break out of the bubble and start looking at what is happening and look at seriously where we're heading, because on the back of this women empowerment and so on, which again has its strengths and weaknesses, like everything has its strengths and weaknesses. So on the back of that, what's happening now is that there are girls who are saying, they'd rather not get married. They'd rather not get married, because why would you want to get married, get into a relationship, and a man then has control or shows control over your life? And that's the level it's reached to, where people are not seeing where the next danger is coming. Because there are already, individuals who are questioning the whole marriage unit because of, the nature of liberalism, feminism, and so on. And another thing I want to say is that, yes, it is important that we be educated and we know, fine. But what you've got to do is you've got to balance it with real life, and you've got to balance it with everything else that is going around you. You're end of the day, you're a functioning human being that has to lead a life, and you're going to stay with other human beings in life. Now, there are women out there, and I think the numbers are now increasing, who just find a life on their own because they've got their own flat, they've got their own income. Okay, they've got their own choice, and somebody listening to this could say, well, that's their choice, that's their freedom of choice. Well, okay, if it's the freedom of choice, there's a whole number of other problems that the humans will face if we break the imbalance that we've got between the gender relationships. There's a whole set of problems that we're going to face. Already, Europe is facing a population crisis, and the reason why is because it's not fashionable anymore to have children. It's definitely not fashionable to have few children. Okay, so right now, even to have one child or two children is like, whoa, I'm gonna lose part of my life to give birth to other human beings. So because it's not fashionable anymore, now it's becoming like it's not even fashionable to get married. Okay, la ilaha illallah. People have found ways of obviously committing whatever they want without having to get married. Now, okay, you might say again, freedom of choice. What happens when this thing becomes the norm in society? The way you phrase it when you say that it's a freedom of choice, you're looking at an individual. But what happens when groups of individuals all across make it their norm to live like that? because that's the next phase where we're going to. And if you have loads of men and loads of women who decide that marriage and getting together is the problem, then what's going to happen to the human race and what will happen to us, and because of the imbalance. And the imbalance comes because usually one extreme causes another extreme. Just because the male sort of dominant era in the past and even till now is there, doesn't mean that we create another era of female dominance, which creates another set of problems. Okay, we already have got a set of problems with the male dominance thing, fine, but we don't want to create another thing. And what we seriously need is, we seriously need people to look beyond the few the sound bites that you're getting. Look into deeply to see, well, what is it where is it that we're heading? Where is it that we're heading? Because one of the other discussions we had was freedom itself. Okay, the word freedom. In what ways are you free, and what privileges do you get under freedom? Even, when you look and you think, well, part of being in you're part of your citizenship, or part of being with your country, or part of being as a person who's in your country, you've got certain freedoms. Do you really have freedoms, or are you supposedly told that you've got some freedoms? Because people are not thinking. Okay, if you have got a choice of watching 40 channels, and then you had a choice of watching 100 channels, then you got a choice of watching 400 channels. Is your freedom increased, or is your freedom decreased? If you're thinking it's increased, you've lost it. It hasn't. It's decreased, because if freedom is freedom of yourself, then you're not really free. You're enslaved by all these things. The more choices you have, the more you are losing your freedom. Okay? If you're able to choose not to choose any of this, then you're free. Think about it. So this freedom and thing about, when we talk about, even if you talk about the feminism thing and being free, now what are you being free of? Where are you going to? The men and women in society, they've been created to live with one another. But if you run away and say, well, I don't need this person or this gender in my life, whatever, are you creating yourself freedom? Are you giving yourself that life that is going to bring you harmony and peace and security and serenity and all of that? No, straight up, you're not doing that. If the breakup takes place because of the imbalance, we're going to see another whole set of problems that are coming in. And I want to go back to my original point, which is people in the past. I reckon we're living amongst a very artificial, very sort of low self-esteem sort of generation. A whole set of people that don't read, and people who don't read, and they haven't read book after book after book. Seriously, you're losing your humanity. You're losing your humanity. You're losing the power of your brain. Seriously, you're losing your self-worth in this world. You're losing self-direction in this world. How can you be a person who just reads bits and pieces, small little article, little blog, little tweet or something, a 10-second Snapchat, a kind of Instagram, little Pinterest or whatever it is, some Facebook article that's just a little document. Okay, and it's like not even a tip of the iceberg on any subject. How can you make decisions, okay, about massive things about human nature, about humans, the evolvement of human beings, how we've lived for centuries and centuries, millennia we've been living on this earth. And our civilization, our whole human civilization is based, upon, thousands and thousands of years. And now we're going to start living our lives and modifying everything, modifying the way we live with one another based on bite-size, little bits of information on anything, and we're just going to go with the status quo. Are you serious? I mean, living among such people is going to be disastrous for the human race. Disastrous for all of us. Why? Because we in the midst of all of this, the humans would have lost their moral compass. Now, what's a moral compass? It's your compass of where you get all your morals from. Where do they come? This is the big thing. If they come because of freedom and because you made your ego the center of what tells you what to do, and that's your freedom, then your compass lies within yourself. And when you give every human being their own moral compass, then you've just destroyed humans. You've just destroyed the human nation. That's the biggest, I think, disaster to human civilization on this earth, that you allow every human being to make their own choice. And you know what? I want all the people who are thinking, well, what's he talking about, this and that, I want you to understand that the people who govern us don't allow this. People who govern us, people in parliaments, people who are making decisions for us, they don't have lives where they give freedom to every individual in the household. They don't do that. They don't give freedom to whoever's around them, to do what they like. They don't. Even the Queen, I'm telling the Queen of England, you I was reading an article the other day. It's an article, and it was fascinating to see the Buckingham Palace's etiquettes of eating, of having food, okay? How they must come at the dinner table, how they sit together, and how you must do certain things, okay, in the palace in a certain way, okay, that must conform to a whole set of rules that's been laid for everyone, okay? Now, you're telling me that, you think, Prince Andrew can just put his legs up and just watch whatever he wants, in the palace? You think that happens? You think they go to schools where they're told, oh, you're free what to do. It's a lifestyle choice. Do what you like. Oh, who do you want to be? Do you want to be this? Do you want to be that? You think they do that? No, they don't. They don't. They tell them who they're going to be from an early age. They tell them about how they should shape their minds, how they should shape their lives, how they have to tame the ego, the semi sort of beast inside themselves, how they have to do that, because they're given a whole a whole direction in life. They're told you don't have freedom. They're told this. The elite tell their children you don't have freedom. If you look at these aristocrats, even how they, feminism in aristocrat societies, no way. I'm telling you, no way. You think, well, just because the Queen's in power that she runs everything, she does everything? No, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen like that. Even Theresa May, you think that she's just in power and she can do it. No, it doesn't happen like that. There are many people around the cabinet that she has to listen to. Otherwise, she's not going to be in power. Okay? People who are in charge and people who are in a unit to try and rule, they have so many governed principles that are behind them in how they must compose themselves, how they must come across, and how they must rule. Because you're not living on your own freedom here. You can't do what you like. And these people have gone through entire lives of discipline. Their own discipline. It's not religious discipline. It's their own discipline. And they have got their own moral compass. Even if you disagree with it, whatever they do in foreign lands or whatever, that's them. They've got, but if you look at the depth of it, they've got serious discipline. And in an aristocrat sort of society, you don't get, um, this whole movement of feminism take over the aristocrat society. No way, no way. The only reason why the queen is there in position is because, it's the way the monarchy sort of works. And she was young and she was the next in the throne. She had to become queen, okay? Now, once Charles becomes the king, do you think that feminism is going to start taking over Buckingham Palace? Do you think there's going to be an imbalance? They're going to allow that to happen in that sort of line of that sort of part of society where you've got the elite, and they're going to allow these things to happen? No way. And it's very unfortunate. I'm gonna finish off now, but it's very unfortunate that our the common people that we live amongst, most of them don't read. Okay, most of them don't read. When I say read, I mean reading cover to cover, book after book. That's what I mean by read. So yes, you read these articles and this and that, but when's the last time you actually read a book cover to cover? And when I say cover to cover, I don't mean just read it. I mean, I'm talking about, and again, I'm talking about non-fictitious books, and reading and contemplating and thinking about what you just read and how it sort of relates to you. When's the last time people have done this? May Allah Azza wa Jal, give us a balance and make us people who seriously reflect, who think, and may Allah Azza wa Jal stop the human degeneration that we've started and we're part of. May Allah Azza wa Jal make that happen. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.